Ya na na ya ya ya. Ya na na ya 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 ya. Ya na na ya 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 na na. Ya na na ya 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 na. Hi na na ya 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 ya. Hi na na ya yo. Hi na na ya 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 ya. Ya na na ya yo. Ya na na ya yo. Ya na na ya yo yo. Ya na na ya yo. Ya na na ya yo. Ya na na ya 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 ya. Ya na na ya yo yo. Hi na na ya 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 ya. Hi na na ya yo. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to Hamalot. This on around, can't keep track, the 9th or the 10th anniversary of when we began the service. We actually partly designed the sanctuary for this service so that the service could take place in our primary prayer room. We designed it to be in the round so that people would sit closely and the voices would join together. I know that there is this like aura of unapproachability to we very, very formal clergy, but if you can bring yourself to move a little bit closer, the experience will be richer. And this is a mostly somewhat traditional service that's highly curated so that each moment is very intentional in the words that we use, the tune that we use, the themes that we develop, and the links connecting them all, with lots of singing and lots of times for reflection and study. And this is only our second or third in-person Hamalot since COVID, and it's nice to be bringing it back into this room. We wanted to choose for our overlaying theme for this Hamalot the period that we are in the Jewish calendar called the Omer. It's called either one word, the Omer, or Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, which refers not to the time itself, but to what we do each night. The Omer, in some ways, is one of the more obscure parts of our tradition. Right? You have to be a certain level of traditional and observant and frum to know about it, care about it. It's also one of the most fascinating parts of our tradition because it's undergone at least 3 radical transformations since its inception. The only Omer the Torah knows about is an agricultural Omer. It's barley. It's early ripening barley, a sheaf of which was brought to the temple for 7 weeks from Pesach to Shavuot, to recognize that the fields were producing and yielding what they were supposed to produce. And you count it every night so that you're sort of counting up the amassing of agricultural bounty. That's the only thing the Torah knows. And therefore, the Omer was a period of celebration. Wow. Everything is working in our society as it is supposed to. Along comes the Talmud, and is aware that the Omer is what it is, and adds to it 2 things, one positive, one negative. The positive thing is that it connects Shavuot, which in the Torah was really an agricultural holiday, to the holiday we know it as, when the Torah was received at Sinai. And the rabbis say, therefore, the counting of the Omer is not just counting up in bounty that is from your fields, but in the bounty of your Spirit as we move closer to the whole point of Exodus, which is the getting of the Torah at Mount Sinai. And then because of 1.5 lines on one page of a Talmud over thousands of pages long, suggesting that there was a plague that struck the yeshiva of Rabbi Akiva, and many of his students perished during the Omer took on also a negative, mournful, sad aura, such that people were both celebrating, yay, Shavuot is coming, and oh no, Torah scholars left the world, and there was a period of mourning that is still observed by many, not shaving, not listening to music, not getting married. So 2 revolutions took place in the rabbinic period. And then, depending on how you count it, between 12 and 1400 years later, Omer got reborn. Because when Omer was put into the hands of the Kabbalists, who saw sparks of God everywhere and saw nothing mundane in the world, and they saw the number 7, and they saw the grid of 7 by 7, 7 days of 7 weeks, their Kabbalistic batteries were charged, and they said, we have a 7 in Kabbalah. And actually, there's a connecting word. It's the 7 sefirot. A sefirah in the Kabbalah is an emanation or a level of God's presence in the world. But sefirah is the same word as sefirah to Omer, counting the Omer. And the Kabbalah said, we are going to claim the Omer as our own. And what they added to it, in addition to biblical agriculture, rabbinic, leading up to Sinai, rabbinic mourning for Torah scholars being lost. They added to it Kabbalistic emanations of God's different particularities and presences and beauties, all of which simultaneously exist for us to try to see in God and emulate in ourselves. It's this last aspect of the Omer that we're going to be focusing on a little bit today. Every one of the 7 major sfirot that is mapped onto the Omer will get a little bit of attention. You can study the Kabbalah and the Kabbalistic understanding of the Omer for decades and know nothing, and that says nothing about you and everything about it. But basically, what you need to know is that the 7 words of the Sfirot mean something different in Kabbalah than they mean in basic Hebrew vocabulary. So if you know what these words mean in Hebrew, you may not have any guess as to what they mean Kabbalistically. And the list is as follows. Chesed, which is the closest match, which is understood in the Kabbalah to mean love or loving kindness. Gvura, which in Hebrew means strength or courage, is understood in the Kabbalah to be discipline, self-restraint. Tiferet, which means some kind of a beautiful physical glory, is understood by the Kabbalah to mean empathy. Netzach has to do with things that last, endurance, the aspect of God that never ends. Hod, another word in Hebrew which generally means glory or beauty, which in the Kabbalah on the Sfirah has to do with humility. Yesod, which in Hebrew means a foundation or a basis, in the Kabbalah means bonding for the most part. And Malchut, which means royalty or kingship, queenship, which in the Kabbalah is understood to mean nobility or dignity. You don't have to remember them all, but each of those is going to get a short visit today as we map Hama'alot and Shachrit over Kabbalah and over Talmud and over Torah to bring the Omer, those ancient barley sheaves, and the Kabbalistic emanations of God back to life. And we'll start with that same tune we sang before with the words you can find on song number 1 on your song sheet. Leshem yichud kudsha brichu ushchintei hineni muchan umezuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat haomer sheva Shabbatot temimot tiyena sheva Shabbatot temimot tiyena Leshem yichud kudsha brichu ushchintei hineni muchan umezuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat haomer shel sfirat
As Rabbi Kligfeld was saying, the Torah commands us to count the Omer, to count the 50 days between Pesach and Shavuot, which was purely an agricultural act, to count from the first barley crop to the harvest of the first fruits. And we did so to give thanks to God for the blessing of the abundance of the crops that we had. The rabbis later added a historical significance to the counting of the Omer. They moved the focus from the counting from a natural focus to history and narrative. As we know, biblical holidays were agricultural and often associated with historical events. As we know, Pesach was at once an agricultural holiday and associated with the Exodus. Shavuot had no historical event associated with it in the Torah. But the rabbis many generations later connected the holiday of Shavuot to the giving of Torah at Mount Sinai. By giving Shavuot a historical event, one so closely associated with Pesach, the rabbis almost turned the period between Pesach and Shavuot into one long extended festival. They imply almost like a Chol HaMoed. It's like a really, really long Chol HaMoed. If you didn't have a long enough Chol HaMoed last week, you got 7 weeks of one now. They imply that Pesach and the Exodus do not stand alone. Leaving Egypt was only the first step. Yes, we escaped slavery, but that is not the end game. We escaped what Sir Isaiah Berlin called negative freedom. We were freed from coercion. We were no longer constrained by Pharaoh. But we were not ready for what he called positive freedom. That is the freedom to. The freedom to become our best selves, to act in our best interest, and to live lives with purpose. That was to come with Matan Torah, the receiving of Torah. By adding this meaning to Shavuot, the rabbis also give new meaning to the counting of the Omer. Counting, for us, in effect, becomes a yearly ritual to experience the unbreakable connection between the Exodus and the giving of the Torah as the full circle journey from slavery to redemption. Each year, the Omer is a time when we are, in a sense, retracing the steps of the Israelites leaving Egypt and wandering the desert on their way to Mount Sinai. We ourselves are preparing to receive Torah. Along come the Kabbalists, and later the Hasidim. They focused on spiritual psychology and improving the self. They took the Omer a step further, as Rabbi Kligfeld just explained. They realized that this period, the counting of the Omer, when we're journeying from slavery to redemption, we are progressing from the freedom from to the freedom to. This period requires personal preparation. They once again reimagined the Omer as a period to focus on our inner selves. We use this time, the Omer, for spiritual elevation and self-improvement. The Kabbalists put forth a very specific path for how to do this. We just talked about the 7 sefirot. Those are the ones that we're going to talk about today. These are the 7 attributes that we can emulate to realize this kind of self-actualization. Sorry, a little cold. By doing the inner work to improve ourselves on these specific characterizations, we prepare for Matan Torah, the re-giving of Torah again this year. We're going to do these short presentations and ideas. It's by no means expected to be comprehensive, and you're not expected to walk away today being an expert in the Kabbalah, an expert in the Sefirot, and an expert in this kind of an exercise. But hopefully, if this isn't already your practice, it's to get you to start thinking and to exploring and seeing if this is something that speaks to you. Maybe this is a practice that you implement. Try it out this year. Try it out a little bit this year. Maybe it's something you want to try on for size. Maybe try on for size a little bit this year, maybe a little bit more next year, maybe a little bit more the year after that. The first sefirah we're going to start with today is Yesod. Yesod is actually the 6th one that comes in the Omer series. It usually comes in the 6th of the 7 weeks. And as Rabbi Kligfeld said, in Kabbalistic terms, it is usually translated as bonding. But in traditional translation, it is translated as foundation. So it always felt odd to me that it comes as the 6th, because you would think that with the word foundation, it would come first. All these words, by the way, have many, many different translations, which is totally standard for mystical themes to have many, many different ways of translating. So I'm going to touch on 2 translations. So in addition to being translated as foundation, it can also mean truth or integrity. So that's why I think it should come first, because thinking about foundations and truth and integrity, that's where I want to put it. I want to put it first. In order to do the inner personal work, any efforts where you're trying to become a better person should start with the foundations and really understand who you are. Where do you come from? What are you capable of? And 2, start with being honest with yourself. Are you coming at this or any exercise willing to take a long, hard look at yourself and be honest with what you see? Are you willing to pull back the layers and find the foundations? Are you open to making the commitment at this time? How can you address each of these 7 qualities with full integrity? To me, this is the place to start before getting into any of the 7 specifics. And if the answer is no, if you're not ready to do this, that's okay too. That is the truth. That is foundational. What is a better use of your time? What is worthy of your integrity? Because I think it's important to always start at the foundation, lean into the truth, and let that guide you to the right path.
Song number 2. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Melachav, Hallelujah, Kol Tzevav, Hallelujah, Shemesh ve'Yareach, Hallelujah, Kol Kofei Or, Hallelujah, Shmei HaShamayim ve'Hamayim, Asher me'al HaShamayim, Yehallelu et Shem Adonai Yutziva v'Nira'u v'Yamidem le'ad le'olam Chok Natan ve'lo yavor Yehallelu et Shem Adonai Yutziva v'Nira'u v'Yamidem le'ad le'olam Chok Natan ve'lo yavor Hallelujah. 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 We jump from Yesod to Netzach, a wonderful Hebrew root, which again, the Kabbalah is from the word Netzach, meaning forever, lenetzach, something that does not end. But Nun Tzadi Chet also means victory. It means triumph. And it's interesting to think about the relationship and maybe the inexact relationship between those two words. If you're willing to, I invite you all to close your eyes for a moment. My usual caveat, if you're someone who enjoys meditation, lean into this meditation. If you're not someone who meditates, don't think of this as a meditation. Just close your eyes. Situate yourself in the room, in your mind's eye, using the immediate memory of what this room looks like, where the light is coming, who's sitting near you, to just be a little bit more intentional about claiming this space as your Dalet Amot, your 4 cubits of spiritual repose for the length of this service. If you haven't yet, you can place your feet flat on the ground in front of you. And try to make clear and sharp right angles between your feet and your shins, your lower leg and your thighs and your torso, with your spine leading to your neck, straight and dignified, so that your chin is forward, but everything else being allowed to sag, to droop, to yield to gravity, to release tension, and to arrive at poised rest, an experience of your body and yourself that is very alive, very awake, very focused, and very tranquil, very at rest and very at peace. And whether the words come into your mind's eye in Hebrew letters or English, just produce them when I say the word Netzach. Nun Tzadi Chet, or any version of English letters that makes sense to you. Netzach is forever. Netzach is endurance. Netzach is the aspect of God, v'hu haya, v'hu haveh, v'hu yeh, who was and who always will be. Netzach is the eternality of our soul. part of us that will never disappear. Netzach is victory. The urge to win, to be triumphant, to be at the top, to be at the top at the expense of others. I want you to allow yourself to lean in and to breathe in to the potential inverse relationship between Netzach and Netzach. The more we push the ladder, the urge to be victorious, the shorter things last. The more we want to win, the less time we may have enjoying what actually is. Allow your mind, unedited by your urge to protect yourself. Think of a relationship or a connection where your instinct to be on top is threatening to shorten, to undo the potential endlessness and endurance of that very bond. During the Omer, as we count towards Netzach, we count towards and move ourselves towards beyond the Netzach that has us be a champion, and towards the Netzach in whose presence people want to remain, whose relationships endure, who can almost touch the timelessness of the Holy One. That is our Netzach, and that will be our ultimate victory. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Yada-da-da-da-da, Song 3. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chokavai et Shem Kodsho. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chokavai et Shem Kodsho. Ha'el v'tatzumot uzecha, Hagal birvot shemecha, Ha'ibor lanetzach. Ha'el v'tatzumot uzecha, Hagal birvot shemecha, Ha'ibor lanetzach. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chokavai et Shem Kodsho. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chokavai et Shem Kodsho. Ha'el v'tatzumot uzecha, Ha'gadol birvot shemecha, Ha'ibor lanetzach. Ve'hanora b'noratecha, Ha'melech hayoshev al kisei Ram v'nisa. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chokavai et Shem Kodsho. Barchi, Barchi nafshi et Adonai bechol kavai et shem kodsho.
You've heard many definitions of sfirot. Sometimes the translations are a little bit different. Sometimes there are many meanings. Michael Fishbane calls these clusters of meanings and says that every sphira is a cluster of meanings, is no one singular thing. You can think of it like a constellation rather than a single star. And what is the constellation of Hod? Hod is glory. We say Hod v'hadar lefanav. Glory is God's honor guard. Hod is splendor. Hod v'hadar lavashta. Hod is part of God's clothing. And glory and splendor acknowledge divine presence and power, and yet they seem untouchable, part of another realm. This acknowledgement of divine presence and power is something that we do every moment that we pray. For Hod is also the sphira most associated with prayer. So as we go into Nishmat Kol Chai, which speaks of the breath that God gave us and speaks of the redemption that God gave us, through which God's glory brought us through the waters towards Sinai, we also inhabit Hod as a recognition of that glory, that splendor, both within us and without.
Song 4. Nishmat kol chai tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu nishmat kol chai tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu When this service was designed 9 years ago, already Rabbi Kligfeld was describing these pieces of Shachrit that we're about to do as an archipelago of prayer. I think it's apt. We're going to not just jump, but really sail between the Chatimot, each of these blessings from place to place. First, we'll start with the Baruch Hu, which can be found on 149 if you want to follow along in the prayer books. But you can also follow along, again, on these pages, starting on the back side. Cantor Stone will lead us beginning with that Baruch Hu, and then in between, we take more license than we take on other occasions, to speak between with bichavana, with intentionality, in a way that's not, hopefully, hafsakah, it's not disruptive. It's not hefsek, it's not making barriers, but rather helping us with that journey from a little aisle to other aisle of prayer. Continuing on our exploration of these sfirot, and also of El Adon, which as a piyut highlights some of these very sfirot. So we begin on 49 with that Baruch Hu, and I'll invite you to rise, and then we'll take this journey through Shachrit all the way up to a Hechi Kedusha, through which Cantor Stone will lead us in the Kedusha, and then we continue on our own private Amidah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Tiferet is all over our liturgy. Splendor, as a translation that's very grand and formal. What else is in the Tiferet constellation other than that splendor star? How can we inhabit Tiferet, something that seems so grand? Tiferet is in the middle of the Sfirot map. It sits between Gvura and Chesed. It sits between discipline and love. These two Sfirot can be easier to aspire to, perhaps. What is Tiferet? It's that key, it's the glue, it's the balance. Between discipline and love sits empathy. Between Gvura and Chesed sits balance. If the world were all Gvura or all Chesed, it would fall apart. In Pirkei Avot 2:1, Rabbi says, what is the straight path that a man should choose for himself? One which is a tiferet to the person adopting it, and one which is a tiferet that is accrued to him from others. In the final line of El Adon, we find Tiferet. We find Tiferet and Gdula. Because what better praise for greatness, what better pair for greatness than balance?
El Adon al kol hamasim baruch u'morach b'fi kol neshama gadol v'tuvo malei olam dadud v'nai sovevim oto hanit gai achayot hakodesh v'nedar b'chai
נותנים לשמו צלב ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אור רע והתקין צורת הלבנה שבע אדנים כותבים לו כל צבע מרום תפארת וגדולה שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש.
אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות.
God as King, as Melech, is all over the part of Shachrit we're in. When you don't have a minyan and you're saying Shema, you say the words before El Melech Ne'aman, the God who is the trustworthy King. You recite quietly during the year and out loud on Yom Kippur, the line after the Shema, asking that God's Malchut, God's reign, live forever and ever. And in the paragraphs after the Shema, we refer to God's kingship as being truly ascendant when God took us out of Egypt and freed us from the Red Sea. So in classic Talmudic, rabbinic Hebrew, Malchut is God's supreme reign. In Kabbalah, it's something a little bit different. It's God's nobility, God's dignity. Maybe we could add, in a play on language, using the highest sense of the word, God's fineness or refined quality. Our ancestors who put together the Siddur were liturgists. They were poets, stringing together language in ways that only a poet can, usually setting a goal for us to aspire to just beyond our reach. I want to bring in a modern poet, Mary Oliver, and her poem, Where Does the Temple Begin and Where Does It End? As we consider the Malchut, the nobility that might be just beyond our reach, but still worth striving for.
Where does the temple begin? Where does it end? There are things you can't reach, but you can reach out to them, and all day long. The wind, the bird flying away, the idea of God. And it can keep you as busy as anything else and happier. The snake slides away, the fish jumps like a little lily out of the water and back in. The goldfinches sing from the unreachable top of the tree. I look, morning to night, and I am never done with looking. Looking, I mean not just standing around, but standing around as though with your arms open, and thinking maybe something will come, some shining coil of wind, or a few leaves from any old tree. They are all in this too. And now I will tell you the truth. Everything in the world comes, at least closer, and cordially, like the nibbling, tinsel-eyed fish the unlooping snake, like goldfinches, like dolls of gold fluttering around the corner of the sky, of God, the blue air.
If we're stuck with Malchut, God's kingship and queenship, it's really way beyond our reach. And if we tried to live that way, it wouldn't even work out well. But if we cling to Malchut as the most noble way a person can be, the most dignified and refined way you can walk through life and appear to others, even as we slip and trip and stumble and fail in that attempt, it's within reach. It's within sight. It's worth striving for as we join God in Malchut.
וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ליחדך באהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך.
How do you display chesed in the world? Chesedim tovim, isn't chesed already loving kindness and good? Chesedim tovim, that we say God's good loving kindnesses, as we're about to chant together in Tefillah, in the Amidah. What is so good about God's loving kindnesses? What is so great? What is so grand? And how the heck do we do that as human beings with one another? Even though Tiferet itself later becomes the sphira of empathy, loving kindness is an embodied start. We've just finished the first week of the Omer, this first week of Chesed, and it's a way and a sphira in which we can turn to the people whom we love, the people with whom we're in relationship, and display love to them in the most fully embodied and fully capacitated way. And we're going to try that now. I'm going to invite you to speak to it. And I'll be the first volunteer. I want you to think about the pettiest argument you had this week or this month with someone that you love. You'll see in a minute how this works. For some of you, this may be very easy. It might be this morning, right? I'm thinking about the way that I spread cream cheese on my 4-year-old's bagel, but I'll give you a different example in a moment. And I'd love for you to think, to share out loud in one sentence or less what the argument was about from the perspective of the other person. And I'll start. My mom wouldn't let me have crackers in bed after I brushed my teeth. That was my last petty argument. Anyone else holding something like that you can speak to?
So from the perspective of my wife wasn't thoughtful enough to bring my backpack when she came to get me at work.
My wife wasn't thoughtful enough to bring my backpack when she came to get me at work. Okay. Oh my goodness.
It was on the chair, on the stairs.
It was right there. It was right there. Okay. Anyone else? What petty arguments are we holding? From the other person's perspective. Let's catch one or two more. We're going to hold it in this circle. Anyone else? What are you holding on to? What memory of a petty argument can be resolved?
Oh, come on.
You must have petty arguments.
Nobody else argued? We're not leaving.
Could be a workmate, could be a child, it could be anybody. Yeah. Oh, my pickleball partner was upset that I missed a shot.
And she's correcting you right now. That's not exactly true.
My pickleball partner thinks that I don't understand what happened on the pickleball court. Okay, we got two more. Yeah, Sam.
My wife doesn't allow me to sleep even though the snores are waking her up.
My wife doesn't allow me to sleep even though the snores are waking her up. Oh, it feels so familiar. Okay, and there was another hand over here, yes.
I snapped at a friend because she talks about the same thing over and over and over again.
Oh, so my friend snapped at me because, you snapped at her, right. So from her perspective, my friend snapped at me because I was telling the same story over and over and over again. Okay, so from the realm of chesed, we've already walked out of this chesed. This is what I'm going to hold on to in this circle. Love, love, love. Chassidut and loving kindness means that when we are holding a petty argument, even just a petty argument, that at the very least, that kernel of love is that we can turn that petty argument into seeing it through someone else's eyes. If you get nothing else, Dainu, love, love, love someone enough to see the petty things through their eyes. Because if we can see the petty arguments through their eyes, then when the arguments are bigger, we can build on that love. We can build on that love too.
Tzur Yisrael, Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvdeinu Mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Yal Yisrael. Baruch Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Koneh Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei V'Nehem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך על הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול, מנשאים לעומת שרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים, ועינינו תראנה תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדישתך נקדיש, ושיבך אלוהינו מפינו למשלם לעולם ועד, כי המלך הקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני אל הקדוש. Shemei Rabbah, Ve'amad Divra Kirtei Ve'amlich Machutei, B'chayachon V'yomechon, Uv'chayidecho Beit Yisrael, B'agalav Izman Kari Ve'imeru, Amen, Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach, Ve'alam Olam Me'amaya, Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yishbar V'yitraman V'yidnaseh, V'yishdar V'yishalei V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha, B'richu, Lamin kol bechata v'shirata, jush bechata v'nechmata, damiram be'ama ve'imeru. Amen. Teach kabal tzlo tohonu v'adhon, d'chol yisrael, kadonu v'honu v'shmaya ve'imeru. Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shmaya, v'chaim aleinu v'kol yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'kol yisrael ve'imeru.
Amen. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai Yerushalayim, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udvar Adonai Yerushalayim.
You can be seated. In just a moment, we'll be reading from the beginning of the 11th chapter of Leviticus, which is found inside of Parshat Shmini, which is the weekly portion. We're on page 636 if you'd like to follow along. We're going to be delving into some of the laws of kashrut. And we know that some of us have had kashrut on our minds the past few weeks because Pesach, because Passover, and all of the laws of Pesach and everything that they involve. You see, the thing is that the laws of Pesach, in light of the laws that we follow for kashrut all year long, actually represent, in contrast and in comparison and in relationship with one another, they represent the relationship of the weekly sphira with the daily sphira. We discussed this idea of gevura as discipline, and today is gevura shebi gevura. The day itself is gevura, And the week is also the week of Gvura. So what happens when you have Gvura, Shabi Gvura? It's not what I thought would happen. I got it backwards at first, I'll be honest. But then I understood, and I came up with a comparison. I didn't tell my planning mates with this, but I finally got it. It's like when you put down the reverse Uno card, right? Yeah. Okay, so Gevura is discipline, but when you put discipline on your discipline, it means that you have to loosen your boundaries. I'm going to read you the words of Diana Brewer, who I think puts it so beautifully. Who knew that Gevura in Gevura is another way of saying, lighten up? Seriously, sometimes I need to put boundaries around my discipline, discernment around my structures. Gevura in Gevura, lighten up. Or maybe it's just me. Today, may you find strength in discernment. May you withhold judgment and assume the best. May you find a lightness in the structures that you hold together. When we're in Pesach, the strictures that we hold onto with kashrut are a matter of gevura. It takes enormous strength and it takes enormous discipline. The gevura should be gevura of moving back into the regularity of kashrut, which is exactly what we're about to read in Shemini, as we back up into the regular rules of what one can eat and one cannot eat. This bird, but not a bat. Thank goodness, maybe. It's backing up, not into nothingness, but into a lighten up of discipline. That is what Judaism gives us with kashrut. Discipline, but lighten up. May you find lightness in the structures that hold you together. The first aliyah, again, we're on page 636.
If you were listening carefully, I think that Rabbi Chorny just said that chicken parmesan is fine.
I think that's why we named our son Yossi.
Yoram ben Asher Lali Arishana Baruch Shanatan Torah LeMoshe B'Kedushato Batem Bad Bekim Lavechem Chayim Kulchem Hayom
Adonai Machem Rabbanan Baruch Hu Adonai Hamavorah
Baruch Adonai Baruch Li'olam Va'ed
Baruch Ata Adonai Kol Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'Natan Lanu Torato Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah
Amen.
Adonai Moshe v'Aaron Le'mor Alehem Daberu El Bnei Yisrael Le'mor Zot HaChaya Asher Tochlu Mikol HaBema Asher Ha'aretz Kol Mafreset Parsa V'Shosat Shesa Prasot Malat Geira B'Hema Ota Tochelu.
Emet Toratonu HaKadosha Baruch Ata Adonai Elohim Mechal Asher Natan Lanu Toratu Torat Emet V'Chayi Olam Natan V'Tochenu Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah
Amen.
So in light of what Rabbi Chorny just shared, we're going to ask you to... Okay. In light of what Rabbi... You can't hear me? In light of what Rabbi Chorny... Oh, in the Zoom, sorry. Of what Rabbi Chorny just shared, I'm going to ask you if you could turn to a neighbor, turn to somebody, either somebody you came with today or somebody who you are meeting today for the first time. Turn and say Shabbat Shalom. Not yet. I want you to... Yeah, not yet. And I want you to talk about these two dichotomies. The Gevura, the very strict, and the Gevura Sheba Gevura, the Gevura of the Gevura, the discipline on the discipline, the lighten up. Which of these two actually are harder for you? How can you be disciplined about your discipline so that you avoid being a slave to your own discipline? Or, so where can you impose the Gevura on your Gevura? What are the things in your life where you need to do those things? Or where do you need the Gevura? Where do you need the discipline? Where do you need the Pesachs in your world? And where do you need the everyday discipline where you need to impose the lightening up? Where do you need to be crazy? Where do you need the intensity? And where do you need to have a little bit of lightening up? We're going to give you just a couple of minutes to get into pairs and share a little bit about where you need each of these in your lives.
Yeah, it's a good puzzle. Yeah. Yeah, at the Gevura. No, the intense Gevura of Pesach. Yeah. 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 So it sounds to me like for you, Gevura has a tipping point of burden, and that what you need to do in terms of like Gevura should be Gevura is that you need to put up boundaries around the burden. Like when you get to a certain tipping point of burden, you have to find a way to put a boundary there because otherwise you can't accomplish it. It's too pressure.
I was thinking about how I've always like that's kind of my nature is like structure, sign up for things. And so the lesson I was often pushing towards when I was going to college in my 20s was like, you know, and that's fine. But what I find now in my life is that the balance is off between like, I'm not hitting that balance in every part where I hit it, you know, too strong in some places, too light in others. So like what you were saying about like find the thing that I the space. Yeah. And so I find that in like I've overcommitted myself in my professional and academic like things in this moment, and I have a lot of transition, and I don't have the space in my life. So I need the lightning. Yeah, I have two.
Hi da da hi 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 da da hi hi da da hi da da
Does anybody want to share, if you're comfortable, share with us what in your life requires the Gevura and what it requires the discipline, and what requires the discipline on the discipline, the gevura on the gevura. Something that you heard your partner share. Yeah, please. You or your partner, if your partner's comfortable with sharing it.
I need to stop repeating the stuff that I've been going through this year to my friends.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I feel like I need to change the subject and focus more on that and not keep bringing up this whole year stuff.
Got it. So you're going through some stuff and feeling like you're maybe taking too much space in your friend group with it. They've told you that, and you're hearing it. I hear you. I hear you. Thank you for sharing with us. Yeah.
I shared that my son and daughter-in-law are very observant, and especially with kashrut, and my daughter-in-law very. And I have my granddaughter at my house. She wants an egg. I'm not kosher. She wants an eggs, and I sent a text to my daughter-in-law saying, "Is it okay if I make her eggs? I have a frying pan that I just use for eggs, and I'll use plastic." And I waited, and she texted me back and said, "Sure."
Oh.
And I felt like so grateful that it was like her relaxing the discipline of the kashrut because it was more important that grandma should be able to.
Right. The shalom bayit, the family aspect, the gevura sheba gevura, the discipline on the discipline for your daughter-in-law overtook the gevura for the sake of shalom bayit, for the sake of the family. Yeah, lovely. Thank you for sharing. One more. Okay, let's call up our second aliyah.
Yamdu. Avraham ben Elzar Reuven, Viet. Yael bat Asya Baruch Chaim, Le'al Rishona, Le'al Aliyah Shniya.
Okay, ready?
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch HaNevarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch HaNevarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. אך את זה לא תאכלו ממעלה הגרה וממפריסי הפרסה את הגמל, כי מלא גרה הוא, ופרסה איננו מפריס טמא הוא לכם, ואת השפן, כי מלא גרה הוא, ופרסה לא יפריס טמא הוא לכם, ואת הארנבת, כי מלאת גרה היא, ופרסה לא הפריסה טמאה היא לכם, ואת החזיר, כי מפריס פרסה הוא. ושוסה שסה פרסה והוא גרה לא יגר טמא הוא לכם מבשרם לא תאכלו ובנבלתם לא תיגעו טמאים הם לכם את זה תאכלו מכל אשר במים כל אשר אין לו סנפיר וקשקשת במים בימים ובנחלים אותם תאכלו בכל אשר אין לו סנפיר וקשקשת בימים ובנחלים מכל שירת שמים ומכל נפש החיה אשר במים שקט הוא הם לכם, ושקט יהיו לכם מבשרם לא תאכלו ואת נבלתם תשקצו כל אשר אין לו סנפיר וקשקשת במים שקט הוא לכם.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chaye olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Tamod. Liat Rachel Bat Moshe Paltiel, Liat Shlishit. I'm going to pause for quotes.
Mishevei Rachavoseinu Mikor Haviracha Meimoteinu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishevei Rachavoseinu Mikor Haviracha Le'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. Wish a full and speedy healing to all those who are in need. Aliyah number 3 is chapter 11, verse 13.
Baruch
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natamanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen.
ואת אלה תשקצו מן העוף, לא יאכלו שקצהם את הנשר ואת הפרס ואת האוזנייה ואת הדאה ואת היד למינה, את כל עורב למינו, ואת בת היענה ואת התחמס ואת השחף ואת הנץ למיניהו, ואת הכוס ואת השלח ואת הינשוף, ואת התנשמת ואת הקעת ואת הרחם, ואת החסידה הענפה למינה, ואת הדוכיפת ואת הטלף, כל שרץ העוף. כל שרץ העוף ההולך על 4 שקץ הוא לכם.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yamdu Magbiya B'Hagolelet. Please rise. We turn to song number 7 on your sheets as we return the Sefer Torah to the Ark. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Elecha Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Oh, Chadesh, Chadesh, 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 Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. So the ark is closed. Please remain standing. And if you can, I want to encourage everyone to move from where they're standing to someplace else in the room, with or without the person you came in with, but with at least a little bit of physical space between you and the next person. Just go find a spot in the room. Don't overthink it, but just as long as you have at least space to take your next step. You may want to not be in the middle of a row or a pew. In a short period of time, hopefully you've been with us on this pretty incredible journey through eons of Jewish intellectual history, and even through the levels of the heavens as we played with biblical, rabbinic, and Kabbalistic notions of the Omer. And we've lingered on each one at least once, finding a place in the liturgy or the Torah reading where chesed, love, gvura, discipline, tiferet, empathy, netzach, endurance, hod, humility, yesod, bonding or foundation, and malchut, nobility and dignity, have become manifest. And maybe one or more of those penetrated you today. Maybe you identified either with an aspect you're already in line with, or want more to be in line with as they were being described. What we're going to do in what we call me'ein musaf, kind of a in lieu of or inspired by the notion of concluding a Shabbat morning service with another personal Amidah, we're going to remain in Amidah, in standing, for as long as you're comfortable doing so. And ending our tefillot with a reflection. I'm going to do a version of a walking meditation. I'm going to describe it, and then I invite you to do it. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to start walking around the room, sort of aimlessly, or maybe not aimless. Don't bump into each other. Just kind of make your way. You can actually start doing it now. You can choose an outside route, going clockwise or counterclockwise. You can meander in between the pews. But there should be some obvious snake-like dynamism in the room. And I want you to walk differently than you normally walk. Some aspects will be the same. One foot in front of the next, watching where you go, not bumping into things. But try to be a little more alert to where and how you place each foot. Try to do it as quietly and as wordlessly as possible, so that this moment will not last long. You're in a zone of silence while your body is in a mode of movement. And what I'm going to do as you're walking is remind us with just a little bit of language of each of these 7 sfirot, each of these 7 aspects of the Omer. And when I've gotten to the one that you most identified with today, that most penetrated your consciousness, that most speaks to an aspect of God that you feel in your life, or an aspect of self that you wish were more manifest, a word or an image which was your personal meditation today, telling you what sphere of the Omer you're in right now. We might all be, because we're in the 9th day of the Omer, in Gvura Sheba Gvura, the discipline imposed upon discipline. But each one of us has a unique part of our soul and tells us the exact spot that we are in, independent of anyone else. And so I'll begin and sit when the Sphira speaks to you, pushing you, reflecting you, identifying you, spurring you to do more. We spoke about chesed, love, the way of showing someone, the way we expect God to show us, and that we show God and others, the purest outpouring of our heart. And we spoke about gvura, of discipline, of using strength of character to not do or touch or taste everything. An aspect of God that we try to imitate. We spoke about tiferet, glorious empathy. It's different than love. It's understanding another person's reality. It's having them see themselves in you because you see them so well. When we experience God's tiferet, it's a tremendous feeling inside. We spoke about netzach, an emanation that lasts forever, that battles with our desire to be victorious, that allows us and our relationships and our legacies to endure. We spoke about Hod, the road to glory that's actually humble and quiet and modest and underspoken and revealed in the most subtle of ways. We spoke about Yesod, about deep, real, unconditional bonding with another person. The type of bonding that leads to a foundation that is stable and that is firm. And we spoke about Malchut, that just out of reach nobility and refined nature and dignity of the Holy One and of ourselves that we never fully grasp, and we never stop trying to grasp. My eyes are closed, so I don't know what the room looks like. But I imagine that all of you have taken your seats not in a location that was significant, but in a moment was. When you heard the Sphira that you see yourself in, or want to be in, as you find yourself on that grid of 7 by 7. That is your Omer today. That is your sheaf of barley that you're bringing to the temple. That is your basket as you're walking to Mount Sinai. That is the part of God that lives inside of you today, that people will see reflected in you, that you use as your guide to your words, your actions, and even to your footsteps as you walk through the day, as you walk through the life. Leshem Yichud Kudsha Brichu Ushchintei Hineni Muchan Umezuman Lekayem Mitzvat Taseh. Song 1. Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Sheva Shabbatot Temimot tiyena, Sheva Shabbatot Temimot tiyena. Leshem Yichud Kudsha Brichu Ushchintei Hineni Muchan Umezuman Lekayem Mitzvat Taseh. Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer, Shel Sfirat HaOmer. Please rise for Aleinu. Eheinu, Eheinu, 205. Eheinu, Eheinu, Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon HaKol l'tekiru l'yotzer b'reshit shelo asanu gingoyei haratzot ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אינות, 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 אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, ידעת היום והשבותה אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת עינות, 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 עינות. ככתוב בתורה
ושמו אחד אינו.
Before we say Mourner's Kaddish on 207, reminder that we extend condolences to Bob Braun and his siblings on the death of their father, Dr. Richard Braun. An unusual move for Beth Am, but one which is going to work this week. We are moving Daily Minyan to the Braun home, which is just around the corner on Whitworth, from tomorrow morning through Wednesday morning, except Sunday night. Meaning there'll be no Daily Minyan here at Beth Am until Wednesday night, except for Sunday evening. Sunday evening, the Braun family is sitting Shiva at one of the siblings' home in the valley. All other times, Daily Minyan, 8 a.m. tomorrow, 7:30 Monday, 7 p.m. Monday, 7:30 a.m. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Tuesday, and 7:30 a.m. Wednesday will be at the Braun home. And we encourage everyone to help make a minyan to support them and to support the minyan in general. All those who are mourning, observing your site, please rise for Mourner's Kaddish, page 207. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
B'alma divrach chirutei v'amlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavorach leolam leomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasei v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal shemei dekudusha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata tamiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Aseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. We so love sharing this with all of you. We try to construct hamalot so that people come and feel filled up, but still wanting a bit more. We hope that that's what your experience is, which is sometimes the opposite of what you sometimes feel on a Shabbat morning, particularly after 8 days of a holiday. I don't remember when the next scheduled full hamalot service is, but we might do a mini hamalot on May 6th. May 6th. Like, meaning not this exact experience, but some aspect of it grafted onto a traditional service. My guess is that we'll probably have a full hamalot at some point over the summer, at some point in the fall. We're trying to get back into the rhythm of doing it 5 or 6 times a year. Yasher koach to my extraordinary and talented and musical and wise and creative partners for the service, Cantor Michelle Stone, Cantor Rabbi Hillary Chorney, rabbinical intern Sheba Lehrman, and Rabbi Rebecca Schatz, who's not here this Shabbat, but helped us forming this theme. And we hope that whether you had a rich or a non-existent relationship with the Omer beforehand, that it's slightly upgraded now in music or in idea. And it was a real honor to share the Shabbat morning with you. We're going to conclude with Adon Olam. Mincha this afternoon is at 6:30, learning with
Rabbinic intern
Yael Aronoff. And then look out for other things, including there's a Shabbat dinner that's coming Friday night, the first of several programs that we're doing to celebrate Israel's 75th birthday. Shabbat dinner, the speaker will be our Consul General in Los Angeles, Hillel Newman, will be visiting Temple Beth Am and speaking at the dinner. There's still time to sign up if you'd like to join for that dinner, and look out for other events as we celebrate 75 years of Medinat Yisrael. Adon Olam, right?
Adon Olam Asher Allah B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'nasa B'chesako Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Hey!
211. Adonai, Leave Elohim Ra. Adonai, Leave Elohim Ra. Hey, please rise for Kiddush. Do we have Kiddush?
Do we
here?
have a Kiddush tree? Yeah.
All the way over there.
I'm always wandered up way on this. No, it's good. We're going to keep them maybe so the guys can go.
okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's still kosher
Shamru Fanei, Shvala Shabala, Sara Shabala, Dor Tambarit, Alam Beni Obey, Minnesilti, Lilam, Kisheshim, Masaranai, the Shemai Darts, Diomash Fishabat, by Navas, the Hort, Jomash Bala Kadashir, Sheshim, Tabasita, Komataha, Diomash Fishabat, Lanala, Tasekum Laka, Attack, Tavitaka, Avda Hamaku, Taka, Shiraka, Kisheshim, Masaranai, the Shemai Darts, Etayamia Kola, Sheba, Bayana. Came Beira, Hanai, Jomash Babai, Kadashu, Sarim, Aranan, Rabbiana Matai, Baruchatan, Namakola, Bore, Priya Gafer. Shabbat Shalom Kiddush. I don't even know where Kiddush is.
I think it's in Adelson.
Kiddush is in Adelson Hall. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
יש זום?
היה זום.
כן, היה, אבל במעלות היה?
We did talk. Yes,